Hello and welcome to the Burn KC ScorchCast. I am your host, Alex Blackburn, here to bring you the good KC sports news. We have got a little bit to talk about this fine Sunday evening. It's between the spring and summer. It's generally a fairly slow KC sports season. Obviously, with no NBA team, you kind of have to bank on the MLB and the MLS, as well as the NWSL, to provide sports news. And then, obviously, there's a bunch of off-season news too. But we've got a decent show coming up, I would say. Got to talk about obviously, the transfer window, or at least the first transfer window, has officially closed for college basketball. So we're going to be grading out how the three local teams have done so far. We've got some transfer updates for college football as well. We have got the Chiefs burning question, as well as just going over the start of rookie minicamp. We've got soccer news, a little bit of some KC Current, a little bit of some Sporting KC, and then a few minor things before we wrap up our show. So strap in, sit tight, let's have some fun. This is the Burn KC ScorchCast. All right, first and foremost, we've got some college basketball news. We are going to be going over the transfer grades because the initial window of college basketball transfer, the opening of college basketball transfer portal is officially closed. I believe it opens back up sometime in June or late or early July. I can't remember for the life of me. But we have got some interesting stories coming out of this weekend. K-State had their shot at a couple of key transfers. We're going to start with K-State because, frankly speaking, what are they doing? What are they doing? You got Doug McDaniel, which is great. He's one of the top-rated transfers, but that's it. That's it. Everybody else either transferred out or didn't pick K-State. They had a chance at a Rutgers big man, and he went to Alabama. Khalif Battle is still talking with schools. I'm not sure. I don't think he's made a decision yet. But I think Kansas State hasn't made his final decision, choice list. And just overall, this is not a team that looks like it's losing a large percentage of its starting core. It looks like a team that doesn't want to rebuild after a super disappointing last year. And there's cause for concern. There is. Jerome Tang was, at least in his first year, supposed to be this great coach that was gonna allow Kansas State to compete with Kansas, with Houston, with all these schools that they're perennial contenders. And then this past year, they just kind of fell apart. They had their good games, but they had, for every good game, there's at least two bad games. There were games that you won against KU at Bramlage, and then there were games that you lost against a team like Nebraska or West Virginia, and frankly, it's tough to see them struggle in the transfer portal because this was supposed to be the transfer portal season that Tang got all the marquee recruits, and it just hasn't happened. In fact, quite the opposite has happened. A bunch of guys have transferred out. Arthur Kaluma, Cam Carter, Day Ames. You've got, what's the other guy? There's a few others that I'm just missing off the top of my head. But overall, K-State just has not looked good this transfer portal season. As far as an initial grade, I give them a D. Yeah, you got Doug McDaniels, but that's it. That's really it as far as like marquee transfer targets for a Power Five school that needs those transfer targets. I mean, yeah, you're getting David Castillo next year, but you really don't get a whole lot of people this year. So you're kind of in a tough spot for this upcoming 2024 season. Um, but let's move on to Mizzou. Mizzou actually had a pretty decent transfer class, or has a pretty decent transfer class so far. Let's kind of look at their list. I remember K State's list off the top of my head because it's just been all over KU Twitter. And as someone that frequents KU Twitter, because as a KU alum and former KU writer turned Big 12 writer, that's what I see the most of. Um, let's have a look at Missouri basketball's transfer class because it's interesting because they got Mark Mitchell, the Duke transfer, which is solid. That's a great pickup. Um, you did lose a couple, so let's have a look here. Sports Illustrated's not that great for this. Um, sorry, continuing to look here. So, Javon Porter, who I don't think is related to the Porter brothers, Michael and Javante and all them. Um, he signed with Loyola Marymount. He was a transfer target for Missouri. He is signed with Loyola. Let's see here. They've talked with Carlton Lingard, AJ Brown, Bent Lukton, who is UC Irvine's good player, Bent Lukton, and South Carolina's Josh Gray. Really nothing going on since the Mark Mitchell commit. I thought they had another one. I know that they have a return. Or no, no, they had a guy transfer to Arizona, which, you know, that's pretty big news. Um, I could have sworn they had another transfer. But I mean, Mark Mitchell honestly is a great transfer pickup for Missouri. And I know that they have a couple more that I can't remember the name of. They're doing a little better than K-State does. They're at least not losing as many people as K-State is. Um, but you again, you kind of want to see them do better. Mark Mitchell's a great pickup, though. I mean, Mark Mitchell was a decent to good player at Duke, which is one of the better programs in the nation. Obviously, they're a blue blood, and he will provide a boost to this team. I give their transfer class thus far a C plus. Could be a little better, but solid, fairly solid. And then finally, you got Kansas. Kansas, I mean, they're a blue blood. We know this. Kansas was one of the only schools to not lose a single player to the transfer portal. Not a single one. And that is because they lost LeBaron Filan. They lost him, but he was a freshman that I don't think ever enrolled. So that's kind of where we're at in regards to that. Um, but Kansas didn't lose Elmarco Jackson. They didn't lose Hunter Dickinson. They didn't lose. Um, I mean, they didn't lose anybody on that roster aside from, of course, Kevin McCullough, and Johnny Furphy, who are going to the NBA, mind you. They're not transferring. They are one of four schools that didn't lose a single guy to the transfer portal. Um, this being said, Kansas did still need to do work in the transfer portal after arguably the worst season under Bill Self, and they delivered. I would say they delivered. They got South Dakota State sharpshooter Zeke Mayo. They got AJ Storr from Wisconsin. They got who's the guy from Alabama? Why am I blanking on his name? Hold on. It's like something Allen, I think. Kansas best transfers. Give me 1 second here. What is his name? Give me 1 second here. Gosh. Zeke Mayo. Give me just a second here. I know there's Rylan Griffin. My apologies. I didn't even I was trying to look it up and then I just remembered. Rylan Griffin is the Alabama transfer. That's a guy on a Final Four team, a wing, which is a much needed position for Kansas on a Final Four team. That's a huge pickup. And with the freshman class that they have coming in, as well as the returners they got, as well as the transfers they got, Kansas. Okay. I don't want to say anything about preseason number one. I I don't think anybody that is even slightly invested in the Jayhawks wants them to be preseason number one anymore. After what happened last year and the precedent that was set even before that. Uh, but this team looks dang good this upcoming year. They look dang good. And you know, if they can build chemistry, which Bill Self is very good at, mind you, I think we could see a Kansas team that makes a run for the national title next year. With the amount of talent you have coming back, with the amount of talent that you have coming in from the transfer portal, like these are guys that started for their respective teams that they're transferring from and played big minutes. Like these are not some dude that rode the bench and you know played maybe like 5 minutes a game. These are guys that were starters on their squads, and it could prove to be very very big. Bill Self has a lot of decisions he has to make regarding this starting roster because they've got a deep roster now, which is already a step up from last year, but they got a talented roster too, which again is an even bigger step up. I give this Kansas transfer class an A plus. And call me a homer all you want. Kansas, what do you mean? Yeah, you always glaze Kansas. Can you deny that this is a really good transfer class? Can you deny that Kansas is going to make a great run to in the tournament this next year? And I agree. Oh, well, we haven't seen them play together, and who knows because they were supposed to be really, really good last year too, and they crap the bed and blah blah blah. I think Bill Self has learned immensely from last year. And I think the Kansas assistants are going to be fighting for their jobs this next year as well. So I really think Kansas basketball has a chance to do something special this next year with this transfer class. And they may not be done yet either because the next transfer portal window will open and we may see some more fireworks. So stay tuned here. I'll continue to give you updates as I see them. We had a really, this was an interesting transfer season. It has been an interesting transfer season for college basketball so far. No real huge splashes as of now, but we've seen some interesting stuff. Anyway, let's go on to some college football. All right. So we've got some transfer updates for college football. Starting with Kansas. Give me just a second here. Kansas got a guy though. Sorry, named Amir Herring, who is a former Michigan O lineman and started one game for the Michigan Wolverines. Which sounds like, why are we even talking about this guy then? Kansas got a guy from a power 4/5/ whatever you want to call it now school, and a school that just won the national championship last year. Not only that, this guy has 4 years of eligibility. He was a redshirt freshman and was a 4-star recruit coming out of high school. He would have been Kansas's top recruit, I think second top recruit ever, if they had got him to commit out of high school. That's really impressive. I mean, and from the tape that I've seen on this kid, I mean, he looks really, really good. I think Kansas has a great shot. I think Kansas's offensive line improved immensely from this. And he's gonna give guys like Shane Bumgardner a run for their money, Daryl Simmons Jr. a run for their money. The two transfer guys that came out of the portal. I mean, yeah, we've got a solid group of O linemen for Kansas this year, and it has a ton of depth, which was something that Kansas needed coming out of the 23-24 season. So that's a great pickup. I believe Kansas State may have also acquired a couple guys this past week. Let me have a look. Oh, yeah. Kansas State did get a guy. Little man called Dylan Edwards, one of the top ranked recruits in the state of Kansas out of the class of 2022. He was a Colorado guy who was their leading rusher. And if you don't know anything about Colorado, go read my article over at College Football Dogs regarding them, because they're kind of a dumpster fire right now in terms of their transfer portal and everybody that's leaving and coming in. K-State's got a solid transfer group. You got Dante Cephas, who transferred from Penn State. You got Quentin Rice, who transferred from BYU, Travis Bates, Jordan Riley, and Easton Kilty, as well as tight end Justin Wolf, who transferred from Wagner. I mean, overall, this pickup of Dylan Edwards is gigantic. I mean, this puts K-State in, let's see here. What is their ranking for? Okay, so they're 68th in the transfer portal rankings right now, which isn't bad. It certainly isn't bad. But overall, I mean, this is a solid group, and Dylan Edwards is far and away the best guy that K-State has picked up so far. He's a local kid too. He's from Derby, Kansas. He played with Avery Johnson in youth football. Um, I mean, this is a fantastic pickup, and that backfield with DJ Giddens, Dylan Edwards, and Avery Johnson, along with a host of other guys, is going to be really, really dangerous. So, great pickup there for the Wildcats. Finally, we've got some 2024 Missouri Tigers transfer portal news. I believe they picked up a guy as well. I think all three schools picked up at least one guy this week. Yeah, Michigan transfer Jeremiah Beasley. He is a linebacker and has committed to Missouri, as well as Marcus Bryant. Um, Caden Green and Sterling Webb have also committed to the Tigers as well. You've got another just really solid group of transfers in the Missouri Tigers. Their transfer class ranks 14th, though, in the nation, compared to Kansas State's 68th. And then I think Kansas is right around K-State as well. I think they're like 70th, 72nd, 73rd, something like that. Um, Missouri has a stacked transfer class coming in. So I think they hold that 10-2 record um, pretty easily this year, and probably even do better this year because I mean they got their offensive core coming back. They got a lot of defensive starters coming back. Yeah, a lot of the core pieces left, but they got easily replaced either in the transfer portal or in the next man up type of type of thing. Um, I am picking Missouri as an SEC contender this year. For that reason, I think they're kind of the dark horse because everybody's like, "Oh, Missouri's like one of the more forgettable teams in the SEC." But in all reality, they've done pretty well for themselves since coming over. They had a few kind of meh seasons during that Barry Odom era, as well as, oh gosh, what was the other guy's name? I can't even remember. I mean, Eli Drinkowitz kind of started out rough too, but Missouri football's back. They're back all right. Um, and they're poised to have another big year. So those are some transfer portal updates for college football. Overall, pretty good classes from all three local teams so far. But the transfer portal ain't done yet. So we'll see if there are any more big splashes coming in. I know Kansas, for a fact, could have some traction this week. I think Kansas State is looking at a guy or two as well as Missouri. But I know for a fact that Kansas could have a guy within the next 48 hours. I'm not going to say who because I don't want to spoil anything, and that is simply just a hearing that I've heard. But we could see some fireworks this next week in the college football transfer portal. Let's go ahead and move on to the Chiefs stuff. Okay, so some Chiefs news. We'll get to the burning question here in a second. We had a lot of really good answers for the burning question, I might add. We had some excellent discussion over on the Chiefs Reddit page. So much so that I am probably just going to read off the best answers and just kind of go from there. But first and foremost, the Chiefs started their rookie camp this week. A host of drafted and undrafted rookies are attending this camp. Some highlights include out of the UDFA department first, Curtis Jacobs, Fabian Lovett, both guys that have an excellent opportunity to make the roster, both guys that probably should have been drafted, but unfortunately just kind of fell through the cracks. Those were excellent free agent pickups. I'm pretty baffled that they fell to the Chiefs, but they did. And then we got a couple of minicamp guys that could make some noise. Dylan McDuffie, if you remember him, he was a former Kansas Jayhawk. He's going to be an interesting little thing there. And yes, this time I'm actually being a homer. So you can call me out for being a homer. Guilty as charged. Yeah. This is, um, but I'm interested to see what he does. Um, there's a ton of running backs, so I don't think he's gonna be making the team. Sad to say, but um, he'll give it his best shot. He performed pretty well in the bowl games and like the pro days and stuff that he participated in. Um, so he'll be interesting. Um, and yeah, just the sheer amount of running backs that are in that UDFA group, it's going to be some tough decision making to see who runs behind Clyde Edwards-Helaire and, of course, Isaiah Pacheco. Um, as far as the drafted guys go, Xavier Worthy's looked pretty good. He had a drop that everybody's like, "Oh, he's a bust. He's a bust. He had one drop." Why can't we learn from this? Yeah, it's like you guys have never watched a practice before. Tom Brady's had bad throws. Randy Moss dropped a ball or two, especially in practice. Like, come on. And he's shown to be pretty good otherwise. As has Kingsley Shumataya. Um, Jaden Hicks, I haven't seen a whole lot of. Kamal Haddon's actually been pretty good from the tape that I've seen. And overall, I mean, we got a pretty promising rookie class with the Chiefs here. But what did you guys think of this rookie class? You saw my draft grades over at College Football Dogs, but what do you guys think? Let's look at this week's burning question, shall we? Okay, so I screwed up and forgot that I didn't put a Twitter poll for this week's burning question. I just kind of left you guys to your own devices. No one answered on Twitter, so yeah, whatever. But Reddit. Let's actually let's look at Facebook first because Reddit is going to be quite a bit. Let's have a look here, shall we? So on Facebook, we got a couple comments here. Grandma Deborah Meyer, my grandmother. Uh, I'm sorry for introducing you as grandma. Anyway, hopefully the wide receiver. He's supposed to be super fast, faster than Tyreek. That doesn't mean he can catch worth a darn, but fast. Definitely needed an offensive lineman. Hopefully he's at least a decent pick. I agree. I think Xavier Worthy's got a little bit more catching ability than Tyreek too. Um, Tyreek's got game breaking ability. He does. He's arguably the best wide receiver in the league this year, or for the past couple of years, really. However, he had a bit of a drop problem. Still kind of does have a bit of a drop problem. Worthy is one of the most sure-handed guys that I've seen coming out of college in quite some time. Him and AD Mitchell just had sticky fingers, and that's part of the reason why Texas made the college football playoff last year. Is because they just had great wide receivers. Um, Now that being said, he did have a drop. A drop. Oh my gosh. Um, my brother's the actor, mind you. Um, but he did have a drop in camp. Happens. I think he's gonna have some good hands though. And is definitely wide receiver one material. We'll see what happens with Rashi Rice. And Hollywood Brown too. But Hollywood Brown's circumstances are a little bit less criminally than Rashi Rice's are right now. Um, gosh, that thing's a mess. I considered giving an update on that, but I just like I've heard so much conflicting information on it. It's not even funny. So I'm going to go ahead and just let that one play out. Anyway, Sarah Ben says these are Facebook comments, I might add. Worthy for sure. Curious how he will perform speed wise along with Lewis Reed Zamet. I'm intrigued by both, for sure. I'm intrigued by both. I think Reese Zamet is definitely going to be kind of that hybrid guy rather than, you know, a strict wide receiver. He's going to probably play some return man. He's probably going to play in the backfield. He might line up in the wide receiver group. It's going to be interesting to see how the Chiefs utilize him, if they utilize him at all. I think he will get utilized, but we'll see what Andy Reid comes up with. But yeah, again, Worthy has a lot of hype because he's a first round draft pick and he ran the fastest 40 ever at the NFL Combine. So I understand the hype behind Worthy. Let's go ahead and get into some talk regarding Reddit, though, because Reddit just hashed it out. Wow. Yeah, no. Just clicked on it. 40 comments. So I had a discussion. I'm Mr. Bluey. Great name. Given the first round draft order, I had Worthy as my number one pick for the Chiefs, given his speed and their wide receiver need. And wouldn't you know it, they drafted Worthy. Also getting a new tight end and filling some of the DB and safety holes, I'm feeling more confident than anticipated, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, I was the guy that said, "Oh, they need to draft a linebacker. They need to draft a defensive lineman," and then they go get Fabian Lovett and Curtis Jacobs in undrafted free agency. If that doesn't tell you how stacked this draft was, I don't know what does. Because the fact that you can fill position needs with undrafted free agents in this draft is pretty crazy. So solid pickups there. Icy Sunday 1375 says, I'm happy with the draft. The only glaring need on the roster is interior defensive line and running back, and there's no reason to think we can't bolster those two spots next season and be fine. They are even trying to bolster them with the UDFA group too. So yeah, I fully agree with that. And honestly, the return of Mike Dana, Chris Jones returning, and a whole bunch of other pieces from last year's team are returning in that linebacker and defensive defensive lineman group. Really, the only complaint that I had was they didn't bolster the depth. They did that with the UDFAs and can do that over the next couple of years, provided it's going to be interesting because you got Nick Bolton's contract that you have coming up, and a couple other guys. So I'm interested to see what they do with that front seven group. You can, excuse me, Seahawk 22. You can tell they drafted with clairvoyance, knowing their potential vacancies coming up. Worthy translates to Hollywood Brown. Wiley translates to Kelsey. Hicks translates to Justin Reed. Sumataya Yeah, Sumataya translates to Taylor, Jawan Taylor. Norzad, this comparison's a bit interesting. Trey Smith, Creed Humphrey, I don't think he's that great. I think he's going to be more of an Allegretti type piece. Um, and then he goes in and says, or Seehoff goes in and says, Hanson's a Tuni Allegretti type. And then Haddon is the Snead comparison. There's stuff that I kind of agree with. Um, yeah, Robot Chicken 007 says, I don't think Wiley is a direct replacement for Kelsey. Kelsey is one of the, excuse me, Kelsey is one of one, and he brings so much to the offense. I think we'll still have success after Kelsey. I cannot read today. I think we'll still have success after Kelsey retires, but I think the offense will look a little different. Yeah, a couple comments about Sumataya being the left side tackle and um not the right side. Um and then I agree with the need for a knee replacement. Uh, yeah. Overall, just yeah, there's quite a few comments here. I'm not going to read through all of them, but those are kind of the highlights of discussion there. Um it sounds like overall every single guy that was drafted is getting some form of attention. And that makes sense, number one, because of the talent pool in this draft, but number two, because Brett Veach has had success with late round guys. Um, with some of those, 5, 6, 7 round guys, you kind of just treat them like UDFAs and are just like, if he even makes the team, we'll see how he does, but we'll see. It's really the first 4 rounds that are highly focused on. With Veach, it's every round. Um, and that's kind of one of his best qualities as a GM is his late round draftability. And just overall, I mean, this is a great draft. I'm excited for every single guy. As far as my pick goes, it's tough to say. Um, Subotai is definitely going to give Wanya Morris a run for his money at that left tackle position. He may need a year to develop. But I mean, Wanya is only a second year guy, so we'll see. Um, and overall, just it'll be intriguing to see how this draft class turns out because there's a lot of promise, a lot of ceiling here. So that's the end of the burning question as well as the Chiefs segment. Let's talk about some soccer, a little bit of minor news, and then we'll retire for the night, shall we? All right, let's talk about some soccer. Earlier today, the KC Current had a game against the Houston Dash. The Dash were losing to the Kansas City Current 1-0 when a storm hit Houston and caused a delay. That delay, as of now, I know it's been a few hours, so let's have a look and see, because a couple days ago. Okay, so hmm, okay, it kicked back off about 1 hour ago, and Casey Current is still unbeaten. They tied with the Houston Dash, which I mean, meh, that's still not being beaten. Um, being unbeaten is pretty good. Pretty good feeling. Um, my only thing with the Current, and I was kind of explaining this to my girlfriend who is way more into soccer than I am. I'm still into soccer, but she's into international play and everything like that. Um, I was kind of explaining to my girlfriend, it seems like the current need to depend on their offense, and I feel like I've said this in basically every ScorchCast since the current season started. They really need to depend on their offense to score quick and maintain, um, scoring opportunities and capitalizing on their score. Okay, sorry, let me backtrack here. Um, it really hinges on how quick the offense can score and how well the defense can play in the first half. Because it seems like the current is a first half team. They score really quick and then they just kind of coast to victory. And they score a lot, which is why they're unbeaten. This time, though, they only scored one goal and kind of held that for a long time. And obviously, the delay kind of made things interesting. Um, but overall, a tie. You probably would have liked to have seen a win there. And I'm glad that Houston only scored the one goal, but that's kind of cause for concern, I feel like. Um, Vlatko, there's a reason he got fired from the US international team, and I agree that this is kind of a smaller pond, but at the same time, he's making the same mistakes. He's kind of hinging on offense, um, rather than, building up that defense and building up, possession and everything like that. Because, like, I think the current does a decent job at controlling possession. It's not their weak link. The weak link is the transition defense. I mean, they can't get back, and it ends up costing them. Um, and that's going to have to get fixed before playoff time comes along. I feel like I'm being nitpicky on a team that still hasn't lost, but that's how you keep from losing is improving on those mistakes. And I hope to see a current team with better transition defense and just more ball control and maybe slowing down the game a little bit and spacing out your goals a little bit could help, and just managing that time a little better. Let's talk about a team that ever since the Miami game has just fallen off a cliff. Sporting Kansas City. Looks like we're calling for Peter Vermees's firing again. Don't understand how any of this is his fault, but I guess it is somehow, some way. Sporting has an issue of just going through severe slumps from time to time. And this is one of those slumps. They lost to Real Salt Lake 1-0. Sporting is essentially the opposite of the KC Current, I feel like. KC Current, high scoring team that, if they don't score high, they run the risk of, the defense, the transition defense not working and AD France being too overwhelmed, because she's a great goaltender, but unfortunately, she can't be Superwoman. Um, but Sporting, it's like the defense plays great. Defense is great. The offense that doesn't capitalize on chances. Like, how did we not learn from last year? There's no offensive production whatsoever. Not since the Inter Miami game. And they started out strong. They started out really strong. They had a lot of offensive production. But since the Inter Miami game, it's just been. And you have to wonder, can Burmese get this team in form before the real meat and potatoes of the season comes along? Because right now it's still early. I agree. Playoffs aren't for another 3 months, 3, 4 months. But when is it time to push the panic button on Vermees? I agree that he's getting older. I agree that his methodology hasn't changed a whole lot, which is why, sporting hasn't really changed a whole lot. I don't think he's entirely at fault here, though. I think it's a young group of attackers that just need to develop. I mean, you got veteran defenders back there, but one of the youngest attacking cores that you'll see in soccer up front. So I think the attackmen need a little bit more time to develop, a little bit more time to get in form before we can make a proper judgment on Peter Vermees. That is my opinion on that. But nonetheless, Sporting just needs to find their way out of this skid if they want any chance at competing for a playoff spot. It feels like we were here a year before anyway, so let's hope that they can dig their way out just like they did last year. It'll be interesting to see. Anyway, we'll do a little bit of a Royals update, a little bit of a Blues update, and wrap up. All righty. We are going to wrap up here. Thank you so much for joining me. But got a couple more pieces of minor news here. Royals lost today against the Texas Rangers, losing the series against the Rangers. Started out really, really strong with a 7-1 win, and then just kind of ate it from there. I mean, 15-4 is inexcusable. And then today, MacArthur looked great this past month and then just gave up that gut-wrenching run to push Texas over. But that being said, where was the offense that scored 7 runs on this team in either of the last 2 games? I mean, just not a great performance from our boys in blue. They fall to 3rd in the AL Central, as well as falling out of that wild card spot. And again, it's May. They got time to make it up, but these I can already tell that these AL Central matchups are going to be gigantic. Throughout this season. So, circle those dates on your calendars. You have to see something from the Royals during those divisional matchups. Otherwise, they're going to have no shot at the playoffs. Yeah, the Rangers were World Series champions this past year. So winning 7-1 is no easy feat. But you can't if you're a playoff contender, you cannot get blown out 15-4. You just can't. I mean, that was an absolutely abysmal performance from Royals pitching this past Saturday. But you move on and you play better. That's how the donkey dances. Anyway, the Blues also start their sevens practice this week. They've been doing some kind of informal practices for the past couple of weeks, but this is when stuff finally gets real. So if you're looking to come out, try out a new sport, if you're an athlete just looking to get back in it, this is the great sport for you. And there's a lot of good prospects on this team that will make this 7 squad into a winner. We got 55 guys in total for sevens coming out this year. And if you feel like you can compete, come on out. Even if you're brand new to the game, rugby is an easy sport to learn. So come on out. But anyway, that's our show. Thank you so much for joining me. This is Alex Blackburn of the Burn KC signing off. Have a great night.